Yeah, like
So
and
we
stay for
we
a few days.
rented basically it was just a large SUV. There was six of us that went,
Yeah. But did you
and
stay like for a few days?
no,
At the
no, we just
inn.
went for the day.
Oh,
The whole idea of their tourism approach is to save you on expensive overnight stays at Airbnbs or hotels. So you get to enjoy all these places. And you don't have to worry about whether or not you had a
yeah.
sip too many.
Is that
So
the
they
one
tour you
based out of?
around. They take care of the food for you. And you basically just enjoy your day. You hit four places or so, and then next thing you know, you're back home.
Is that the one that will take you up north too?
These guys, I know they do Muskoka and Simcoe
Yeah.
County.
Okay.
They're based, I think, out of Durham,
Oh.
and I think they have an office in Ottawa or so. But yeah,
Hey, can
so
you
like
send me the information on that? That might be a fun thing to do.
well, it is fun, and you're basically paying almost Uber driver rates to these guys. I'm sure it's more than that because Uber guys don't get paid nothing. But the guy drives you around, and they know the good places. And you get a lot of special attention when you arrive at some of these wineries in terms of describing how they make their wines
Oh,
and stuff. And some of the places are gorgeous, like beautiful farm. Like most of the ones, two of the ones we were at were just farmers with their own wineries in Eastern Ontario, and it was just
hmm,
so pleasant.
nice.
And it's just a nice, relaxing day, and
You
cheaper
didn't have
than
to
an
drive.
overnight stay. Let's put it that way.
All right.
We should
We
have a
are
council.
ready. We are ready to go when you are, Member Cat.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement. At the Township of Severn, we recognize the following land acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, in which the Township of Severn operates, is part of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been inhabiting and caring for the land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Ojibwe or Chippewas peoples. This territory is covered by the Lake Simcoe Treaty 16 and the J. Collins land purchase. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. And we'll have a moment of reflection. And in your prayers, we lost a member of Rama First Nation of Council, the late Rodney Aganosh, and maybe have him in your prayers. Thanks. Thank you. Disclosure pecuniary interest. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, I have J2 as I'm a director on the Coldwater Mill Heritage Foundation.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yes, I have just a moment. Sorry. G 2.4 and G 2.8.
Great, thank you. Councillor McIntyre.
Yes, I have G 2.8, Shago events.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yes, I have G 1.1 and sorry, no, G 2.1 and G two
Oh
point
no,
six.
Member Brennan. I believe we're not pulling items right now. It's declarations of interest.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Sorry. Okay. All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Any others? Okay. Consent agenda. What members of council would like items pulled? Councillor Taylor.
Okay, I'll speak first, Allison, if that's okay. It's through the worship G 2.2, G 2.4, G 2.6, and G 2.7.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Brennan.
Yes, I have G 2.1 and G 2.6. Was that already pulled?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Oh, I think that'll do it for me. Yep.
You, Deputy Mayor Cox.
G 2.7.
Yes. That was called already. That's fine.
Okay, I thought so, but I just want to make sure.
Madam Clerk, I would like to pull G 2.8.
Okay. Make sure I've got everything, so everyone let me know. Deputy Mayor Cox, did you still want to pull the financial review?
Yes, G.3.2, sorry.
I think that's everything. Everyone let me know. Perfect.
Okay. Do we have a motion, Madam Clerk?
Certainly. So the motion reads that the agenda be adopted as circulated, including consent items, with the exception of items G 2.1, G 2.2, G 2.4, G 2.6, G 2.7, G 2.8, and G 3.2.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Manning, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to reports from officials. Corporate Service Report number C23-002, 2022 Annual Surplus Distribution. Is Mr. Plunkett with us? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. So I believe you've all read the report. If there, maybe we'll just we can go to questions. You will see. I will at least outline the reserves that we have recommended the transfers to, but all of these reserves are discretionary reserves. So the council we can earmark them for certain items, but council can redirect them at any point in time for any item that they wish. We do try to, send things to the capital reserve because we spend most of our non-levied roads items or infrastructure items out of the capital reserve, so it just makes it easier. We do already, according to our bylaw, transfer 150,000 to the fire vehicle replacement reserve, and that number has been in place for quite a while, so it likely needs to increase to 350 because that would put us on an asset management plan amount, which would, as long as we're generating that much of a surplus, ensure that we're able to replace all the vehicles on a 15-year cycle, which is the recommended. So if we do get a few more years out of those vehicles, then it becomes a bonus. We have recommended, of course, $500,000 going to the building replacement reserve, but it is specifically for the administration center renovations, and that would allow us to house more staff and to address all of the AODA requirements that are coming due in 2025. And then other than that, the surplus, or sorry, the working capital reserve, you'll notice on there is we have $2,500. That's usually just the remainder of the amount that we're not transferring to specific reserves. And the working capital reserve is monies we keep to ensure that we can run the operations in the event of something catastrophic happening and we're not able to collect taxes for some reason.
Okay, thank you. Any members of council have questions? Deputy Mayor Cox, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Through the chair to Andrew. Andrew, the money that we put into it, which is considered surplus, that means that the funds had to come from the levy, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what I would like to know is, when you're saying you want to put building replacement reserve, and you're going to have to help me here because I was reading something and I probably missed what you said, is what about, you said about the accessibility?
Yes.
And how much is going in for that? Or is that just going into the working capital fund?
So no, it would just be the building replacement reserve it's just another reserve that we have that's no different than the capital reserve. I mean, we could just send it all to the capital reserve.
No, but I have a concern with our accessibility. We had a report on that, and it's very huge amounts to make our buildings accessible. What kind of money do we have tucked away for that? Anything?
I believe, and I go off the top of my head, I can't remember the reserve balance but that is one of the reasons we're sending this $500,000 to that reserve, because I think that'll get us up to somewhere around $2 million.
Okay, I thought that building reserve was for the sorry, the admin building.
So, and so it's not just the admin building, it's for all of our buildings now.
Okay. So do you think that that's enough, or do you think that we are putting enough away in the reserves for this large amount of money that we're going to have to put out to our buildings to make them accessible?
Well, we can just as easily use the capital reserve.
Okay. Oh, we can? Okay.
Right. So it's not a, you know, an either or issue. It
Right.
is just, we just figured we'd send $500,000 over there because we know we're going to do some work there in the near future.
And the accessible construction renovations, when do they have to be done by?
I believe they are supposed to be done by July of 2025.
So we have a lot of work to do in the next 2 years. Sorry.
Madam CEO may want to weigh in. Madam CEO.
Thank you very much. This just came to me while we were talking.
Yeah,
Nope.
thank you. We aren't mandated to do, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat this morning. We aren't mandated to do accessible upgrades by a date. It's when we do upgrades.
Right.
So when we do an upgrade to the admin building, when we do an upgrade to the arena, then we have to make it accessible.
Okay. Okay. I thought, okay. Thank you very much. All right. And the 776 in roads projects that were funded, which ones were those that weren't completed? Do you know?
Unfortunately, I don't think I have that information in front of me. So
Okay. Can you find out and let us know?
I certainly can.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of council have a question? So Andrew, I do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, sorry. Just so Andrew, we have a large surplus this year.
Yes, we did.
Compared? Yeah. So how do we, like, I realize that we can't figure it out. Like, are you happy with this large surplus or not? Like, I just want the new members to hear why we're in this, because, and what we should be doing.
Right. So it's not that I can say as a treasurer, I'm probably always happy that we have a surplus. The downside of a deficit, if we had a $2 million deficit, we would be adding that to the annual levy next year. We would have no choice because the Municipal Act requires us to recover a deficit in the following year.
Okay.
So luckily, we've always been in a surplus position. But our surplus is, aside from, you know, we do, I think I mentioned in the report, we take a conservative approach to, so we attempt to underestimate revenues that we're not absolutely certain we're going to get. And we attempt to overstate some expenses to ensure that we have enough to cover anomalies in, for example, repairs and maintenance. And we could go a year where we don't actually have to do anything significant, but in the event that we do, we want to make sure we have enough money to fund it. When we have interest rates like they are today, it's generating about $500,000 more than we had budgeted. And we significantly increased the amount that we budgeted for 2023, for example. So we increased that budget by $1 million in interest revenue, and we're still falling short. That's great news for the municipality at the moment, but when interest rates go back down, then we will have to bring that number down, and it does impact future levy increases if we're not generating as much investment income.
Okay.
It's unfortunate when we don't have a full complement in the office for various reasons. So we, of course, budget as if all those staff are going to be here, but in the last, I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, we've had quite a few staff that are out on short and long-term disability for various reasons. And that does, because those funds are paid out of our insurance policies, then we can generate $500,000 surplus pretty quickly if it's 3 or 4 employees. So I'm not unhappy with the surplus. I do know it sometimes becomes a bone of contention because we're generating a surplus, but most of these items are outside of our control.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? So, Councillor Minnings.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor McIntyre. Just getting it. Okay.
He's on mute.
It might be Councillor Cox is too close as well.
No, I never bothered.
In the next
I'll mute it too.
Is that better?
It's going to echo a bit, but.
Okay, I'm going to state my question to Mr. Plunkett. With the surplus, along that vein, and knowing that in the next few months we're getting into budget discussions, and at the last budget discussion, which was my first one, we voted in a percentage increase to property, to taxes, etc. So just for my own understanding, if we could continue to have some additional information from you, I would need that to understand as we go into budget discussions, knowing that we did have an increase in taxes, but we do have surpluses, just so that I can get a better picture when we begin our discussions this fall.
So, certainly, I think I did a report last year. It was probably prior to you being on council, but outlining what we anticipate will impact the 2024 budget items to think about and consider. So I'll make sure I get that on a report before we go to budget.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So, Mr. Plunkett, Councillor Minnings had a good point. If I could just follow the same path, the 2.3 million, that's surplus. And when we do our budget, so we had it was under 4%. The monies that are in this surplus, and when we do our budgets, is there anything here that would have affected the levy in that number that we came up with?
So, so the surplus is 100% levy item driven, because any item that was supposed to come from a reserve account, for example, if we didn't spend the money that was supposed to, we wouldn't draw it from the reserve. So, and the draw from a reserve is a type of revenue. And so when I do determine the surplus, it's effectively items that should have impacted levy specific items that we've generated the surplus on.
So 1% is about 600,000. Is that what it is on our budget? Is that approximately what it is?
It's 1% for us is probably, if it's just the municipal, then 1% is about 110,000, 115,000 right now, I think.
So this is 23% on, is that what you're saying?
If this was levy driven, absolutely.
So interesting. I hope this year at budget, and again, I tried to bring some roads forward that were lacking in. So further to Deputy Cox's comments, we opted out of doing, and I know it was late in the game, but this is something that I know the director is not here today, and we're going to have a pre-budget meeting regarding roads, the wish list that the director would like to see. But based on, and every year that I've been here, we've had a surplus. And I'm not asking to spend the whole 2.3, but I think we need to have something, and I'm just stating it. We need to have a backup plan when some of these projects, like we've had this year, where we've only done 2 roads, and we've got engineering on another road, only that this council was kind enough to allow that. We need to have something in that pre-budget that allows, in case something goes astray, like Hydro doesn't come forward with moving their lines, we need to have something else so that we do spend some of this money, because costs keep increasing every year. So I hope at this year's budget meeting, there is something like that that reflects that. Just my comments. I don't know how the others feel, but there was one other question I did want to ask you, Andrew. And I don't know if I can go back to 3.2, but in that document on 3.2, it says you had a surplus of 1.74 million and 1.37 million, which comes to over 3 million. Yet here you're showing a 2.3 million. So I'm a little confused. Or should we wait until we go back to section 3.2 to talk about that?
Oh, so, Mr. Mayor, that surplus is the anticipated 2023 surplus that you looked at on the previous report. And it's not a 1.7 and a 1.3. The total is 1.7. About 400,000 of it, give or take, is being sent to the water sewer reserve, the building department reserve, the BIA, the library, and those ones are automatically must go to those surpluses.
Okay, so sorry, Andrew. So you're saying in the 3.2 that we're going to pull later, there's a 3.11 million surplus. That's for this year?
The 2.3 is for 2022.
No, I understand that. That's
and the 1.3 is anticipated where we're going to end up for 2023.
So what's the 1.74 million that you've got in that document?
That's okay. So the difference between the 1.7 and the 1.3 is effectively the surplus that's in the water and sewer.
That's the 400,000 that you're talking about.
Yeah. So it has to go. And so that only leaves you with 1.3 to be distributed. Okay.
I got you. So our surplus for 2022, as stated in the document, is 2.3 million.
Correct.
Okay. I got you. Okay. Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Resume for a second. The motion reads that corporate service support number C23-002 dated August 9th, 2023 regarding the 2022 year-end surplus distribution be received. And further that 350,000 from the surplus be transferred 100,000 from the surplus be transferred to the fire vehicle replacement reserve, and further that 500,000 from the surplus be transferred to the building replacement reserve, and further that 1,490,000 from the surplus be transferred to the capital reserve, and further that $2,570 from the surplus be transferred to the working capital reserve.
Any further comments? Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to Administration 1.21, Administration Report A23-031, public request for the sorry. I don't know how to shut this off. A23-031 PDF. I don't know who would like to speak to it.
Through your worship, that would be me. The communications officer is on a much deserved holiday, so that I would cover it. So I guess a couple of months ago, we did the sign policy on what we would do with retired signs, and we're getting quite a lot of interest. And Tracy has given you a report on what the current requests are. And I guess it's up for council discussion. When we put the policy together, I envisioned the signs, or I think council envisioned the signs being used for public use, like the mill took a sign and the museum took a sign and whatever. So the requests are all within the policy. I'm not sure they're within the intent of what council was looking for. So I will leave that for council to discuss.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Through the chair. I kind of agree, especially when the one that was like a sign for the front yard. I think I had thought, and I don't know about anybody else, but I had thought maybe in each area, the banners we had might be put into our parks, or, you know, on posts in our parks, like the Coldwater Fairgrounds, maybe out in Matchedash, it would go by the Matchedash Hall. They have a couple of posts. West Shore, they have the new playground, those types of things. And I kind of think that maybe I don't have a problem with these ones, but I think if the township wants to use them, maybe we should decide how many we need to use before we start to hand them out to people. And I was wondering maybe if we could defer this to our new recreation director, Barry. I can't remember his last name. I'm very sorry. Craig. And maybe have him do a report on it and figure out, you know, where they are with he and Tracy and put them in our areas where we have parks. Like we have the Ian Crichton Park, we have the Bass Lake Woodlands one, and they would be quite pretty in the parks. And then we can come back and look at these people too. And I do realize that the Hamlet sign is different. The Hamlet sign is that beautiful wooden sign that went up in Hamlet. It was one of the original ones. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I don't think the township even paid for that sign. I think that the people out there paid for it. So I don't have a problem when we relook at this to find out that Mr. and Mrs. Naylor maybe, or they have the historical Sparrow Lake Historical Society, they may be interested in it, because I do realize that that's a little bit different than the banners we had. But I just would like to have our new director maybe take a look at it, and he could come up with some ideas with us. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Minnings, did you want to?
Thank you. My recollection of the conversation around the signs, and I'm thinking of the metal signs that you can see through that are on posts, was that they were available to citizens to display as long as they weren't displaying them at the front of their properties, or where they would conflict with the new colored banners that are going up. So I wasn't surprised by the requests that were coming in. I was surprised by some of the other requests for banners that are not the metal ones. So I'm all for having our director look at that, but I would like to see an opportunity for private citizens to be able to have some of those metal banners for their properties, and where they're not conflicting with the roadway and causing confusion that way, and creating branding concerns. So I'm if we take it back to the director, I just want to make sure that it's through an inclusive lens. I think it's a positive thing when we have so many residents wanting to have these memorabilia, because that's exactly what they're going to become. And I think that's important, that our citizens feel like they have a piece of our history, and certainly with previous branding and signage, rather than having the metal ones. There was a conversation at our meeting when we discussed it about where would they go, and I don't want to see them piled up in a stockyard somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I agree with the member Minnings and member Cox. My idea is that the larger welcome signs should go to organizations, like I'm thinking of the mill or parks, but the metal ones are a different issue. I agree with that. So I think between member Cox and member Minnings, I think we've got the solution there.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, just through the chair, just to clarify to Councilor Minnings, I can agree with those things, but I would just like it for us to figure out how many we need of the metal banners and what we'd like to do, and then come back to this. And I believe that maybe that request to have a lawn sign might not be what we were looking for. If I could ask the rest of council about that, I think that was one for sure that we didn't. I don't know if that's what we want or if that's what we need to talk about after. But anyway, that's great. We can do that. Thank you.
Councillor Minnings.
Thank you. And yes, I do agree with the deputy. I know also in the agenda or in next agenda, I can't remember where I read it, the economic development project that's ongoing right now, that when we are thinking about our businesses, and I don't know what that economic development focus is going to encompass, but perhaps keeping that in mind as something, whereas they are those broader signs, that maybe somehow that part of branding and economic development, business and township, that those signs could be incorporated to businesses who don't always have funding for those signage, et cetera. So maybe just a placeholder there too, that they're awesome signs. And I think it's a good news story that that residents want them, but I don't want to lose sight of our businesses that might be able to benefit from them too.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor McIntyre, did you want to say something? Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, through the chair. I'd just like to make a point that on Highway 169 on the entry into Washago, there's a very old sign. It's in Rama, but it's a very old sign, and it would look very nice either at the community center or in Centennial Park. So along the way, I know we're picking one at a time, but that's a sign that's been there for a number of years. It's even outdates the last group of signs that we had before we went with the new ones. So it would be placed nicely, I think, in the Centennial Park. Just want to make that clear that I would like that to happen.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
So I just need concurrence from council if we're going with the motion that was in the report, or are we referring it to the new director?
I think we're referring it to the new director, Madam Clerk.
Okay. So then the motion reads that Administration Report number A23-031 dated August 9th, 2023 regarding public requests to require retired township signs be received and referred to the Director of Recreation Parks and Facilities.
Thank you. Move into seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 12-2, Administration Report A23033, Coldwater BIA Board vacancy. Who would like to speak to that? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So staff became aware of a vacancy that has taken place on the BIA board. So Miss Brittany Garber, Ellis, has missed numerous meetings. To my understanding and having checked the minutes, she's only managed to attend one since the start of the term. So until exceptionally recently, staff, neither the board had heard from her for quite a while. Technically, according to the governing bylaw, which is bylaw 2019-19, she is deemed to have resigned because of her absenteeism, as she's missed more than 3 consecutive meetings and did not inform the board prior to any of those vacancies coming up to that third number. So if we fall back then to the Municipal Act, then it comes to council. So technically she's deemed to have resigned from the board, having missed the 3 consecutive meetings. And it's very much up to council as to how they choose to proceed at this point. Staff's recommendation is that council note the vacancy and that it be requested that the BIA hold an election during their next annual general meeting to fill the vacancy with a new member, which would then be confirmed and appointed by council. Staff are working with the BIA on updating the governing bylaws for the BIA. There's a lack of guidance with respect to situations like this as to how they would be handled and how elections of board members are to be done going forward. So we're looking to bring quite a few changes and updates to the governing bylaw, which is why we're recommending that this spot sit vacant until the next AGM, so we have time to get that process into the bylaw. So it's in place for the election of the member. So also, the staff feel that it should go back to the board. It is completely up to council to appoint who they want. Council can appoint when there is a vacancy on the board from even outside the membership, if they had someone in mind that they thought would be an appropriate fit. Council can put the ad out themselves if they're looking for a member. But given that this is a local BIA, we would recommend that it go back to the membership for them to choose and select their next member. And then if Miss Ellis wants to put her name forward again, then she'd be welcome to, but the members would be able to ask her questions as to why she was absent, and she can speak to them directly about it and answer those questions. And if there's new members that have come up in the area since then another member could be considered for the appointment. So with that, I leave it with council.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Jansen.
Through the mayor to Ms. Gray, have we received communication from Ms. Ellis?
I received something from her, just let me find it. So give me a moment here. I did receive something from her after the deadline that I'd given her, which was needed in order to make the agenda, and I can just read it from you. Says, sorry for the late reply. I had some trouble locating this in my emails. If you're unaware, this past winter, I had my first child and been trying to find a group navigating motherhood and running a business full time. I'm still very much interested in staying on with the BIA committee and still on great terms with all the members. They are all very understanding of my current position. Up until now, I've had no help with babysitting daycare for my 9 months until now. They're aware of the days I'll be able to attend if certain meeting dates of the meetings move back to Mondays or will in advance find childcare. Also, with the help, I've already had great reminders from Mark and Lisa, which are members of the board. Due to my mommy brain to attend meetings, I still believe I can contribute to help with success of the Coldwater business if I am allowed to be a part of the BIA. Please let me know the status going forward. And that would be the extent of her email. I should note that even if she is not on the board, there's nothing stopping her from participating in any of the subcommittees or events or undertakings of the BIA as a regular member. We're literally just discussing the membership of the 5-member board. So.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Jansen, supplementary.
Supplementary through the chair. If council was to take that into consideration and make an appointment to reappoint her to the board, and there's a further violation, would we just end up in the I guess a violation meaning a missing of 3 meetings without reason? Would we just be in the same position?
Through you, your worship. So if the individual is reappointed, then they fall back into the regular absentee provisions. So if they miss 3 consecutive meetings, they're off the board again. So I should note that since the individual was appointed, there have also been changes to the structure of the board, having gone from 7 members down to 5. So the vacancy would also at the AGM give the opportunity for the rest of the membership to choose who would fill that 5th seat given the reconfigured board.
Okay. Councillor Minnings.
Thank you. I have one question. Were the BIA board members given the same terms and requirements of being on committees as others on township committees?
Madam Clerk.
I'm afraid I don't think I'm quite understanding Councillor Minning's question. So
Deputy Cox is nodding. So yes. So then having been on a committee as a citizen and still being on various committees, to make committees effective, and I although I'm not part of the Coldwater community, the BIA comes to council quite a bit, and I value the importance of it as a group and its importance in keeping it well functioning, etc. And it just appears to me that what you read to us, Ms. Gray, in the email seems to contradict some of the preliminary talk we've had about not the individual not giving notice to the BIA about their absenteeism. So all that to say that I just wanted to confirm that she was given the terms of absenteeism and it is approved if it's known in advance and if the members of committees know that. But being such an important committee and probably the biggest economic driver in the township, that it's important to keep those members actively working on that committee because there are others who are interested in it.
Madam Clerk, I think if I may, Councillor Minnings, is the terms of reference that we outlined for the different committees. Was this, I've forgotten her name, was she aware that if she missed 3 meetings, is that what you're looking for, Councillor Minnings? If she was aware that if she missed 3 meetings, she was no longer part of the board?
I know that I sent her correspondence as soon as I was aware of the absenteeism, just saying, it's come to my attention, you've missed more than 3 consecutive meetings. Please provide a letter of explanation. Bear in mind, council may still render a decision one way or the other that you are or are not able to remember as a member of the board.
I think, Madam Clerk, if I may, I think what Madam Clerk's trying to do is, I think the Wild Wild West happened at the BIA. There were no terms of reference in years past. I don't think they were aware of the rules and regulations. And I think from what you've just told me, you'd like to bring a report forward and then inform all our boards and committees that the rules apply and are the same for each board and committee. Is that not correct, Madam Clerk? Is that not what you're...
The rules regarding absenteeism for the BIA board have been the same since the board was initially created back in 2009. So the absenteeism rules are not new for the BIA board. They have been carried forward from bylaw to bylaw since 2009 when it was first created.
No, I understand that, but I'm just curious, were they aware of it? Like, who makes aware?
I genuinely do not know. I know that I provided the bylaw when the appointments were, I believe I provided the bylaw when the appointments were first put forward.
Okay.
There are members that have been around quite a while. It's pretty standard. I know I did board training recently at a recent meeting that was fairly in-depth to all the board members and definitely covered this at that. I can't speak to whether she knew about it back in December. I doubt it. Most people don't when they first put their names forward for a committee because they don't think they're going to have any absenteeism, right? So it's not really something they worry about when they're just putting their name forward as an excited member or volunteer. But I honestly, I can't speak to it. I don't.
That's all right. Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty murky. I would be so surprised if any member that was appointed wasn't given a copy of that bylaw. I find that kind of almost impossible. First of all, we have a BIA there because we need a BIA there. We need it functioning. It's had enough challenges this year without chronic absenteeism by members, as far as I'm concerned. 3 months is a lot without some sort of way to try to correct it. And I don't hear in the correspondence that was given to Allison any solutions other than a continuation of the problem. The desire sounds like it's there, but that doesn't wash at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned. There are responsibilities that come with the appointments, volunteer or not. And I think that someone in her, hey, my wife and I have raised 4 kids. I get it. It's tough, but like overpromising and not delivering is not the solution. Maybe at another level of committee work your way in based on time, whatever. But I just don't. To me, this is a no-brainer here. A new appointment should be made, and I think it should be made by the BII under normal circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Did you want to speak?
I just wanted to state, having reviewed the BIA's minutes from the start of this term, Ms. Ellis has only attended 1 meeting in the 6 months. So, and that was back in February, I believe. So while we're bringing forward the vacancy now to deal with 3 consecutive meetings having been missed. We're dealing with a substantial amount of time here. The board itself, the remaining 4 members are good standing members. Staff have no concerns with respect to the board's ability to continue to operate from now until when they hold their AGM. So it's just that would be staff's recommendation, is that the position remain vacant until the board, I think the membership, just like they did a year ago, would then be able to hold an election and put forward a name. So,
okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think further to what Councillor Brennan said, we have to be fair and consistent through the whole process. We dealt with the BIA earlier, and unless we're going to get into a mess here, I agree with our clerk, follow the procedure there, and let the BIA go through the procedure to replace the board member.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I believe you're muted, Deputy.
I got it. I agree that the BIA should be responsible for having their own members on it. I just want it to be known that Brittany was a very good director and she has volunteered a lot. And I know everybody's life is a little different, but I just don't want you to think that she did nothing. She has been very active along the way. And unfortunately, this happened. And if she wants to reapply, I agree that the clerk and with Member Taylor, that we do have rules and regulations, and I don't think council wants to get into the fact of appointing someone, especially when it says, and the appointed person is not required to be a member of the improvement area. And I highly believe that the members have to be part of the downtown, part of the business. This was our issue for a lot of years, and we finally now have exactly, all of them are business owners, because I've always said to them, this is your street. You work here every day. You know what's going on. So I think that council should not appoint, because we could get ourselves in a mess with that one, because we could have somebody from anywhere wanting to be on the board if they applied, and they might be upset if we didn't pick them. So I think we probably should just follow the rules, and at the AGM, the people who want to apply can campaign or find who they want, and let the BIA business owners pick another business owner to help them in the future endeavors.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, just one question, if I may. There's only 4 members now. Do we not need an odd number when they're voting, or am I wrong?
It's a best practice. It doesn't change the membership, so it would just mean that out of a membership of 5, they're just voting as a group of 4 for the next couple months. The
Okay.
AGM, I believe, a member or Councillor Jansen could help me, I think is being scheduled for October and November. So it's not that, it's typically held in October and November. Maybe Deputy Mayor Cox can help me. So we're not looking, it sounds weird to say, but we're not looking at too many months here before the position and the new name would come forward. So.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
The motion reads that Administration Report number A23-033 dated August 9th, 2023 regarding the Coldwater BIA board vacancy be received, and that Brittany Garber Ellis, due to absenteeism, has been determined to have resigned from the Coldwater BIA board of directors, and the council requests that the Coldwater BIA hold an election at their next annual general meeting to fill the vacancy, with the new member then to be confirmed and appointed by council.
Move on a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Jansen, second by Councillor Minis. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business, Georgian Chocolate Company Capital Improvement Grant application. Who would like to speak to this? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So before we get into this one and the next one, because they're both capital grant requests, I will remind or just provide a reminder to council. Within the grants policy, we only provide 50% funding for a capital improvement grant. So if they're requesting $6,000, they would be a maximum of $3,000. Recognition of the funding needs to be provided somehow, somewhere, whether it's promotional material, advertising, what have you. They should be providing 3 quotes. And then at the conclusion of the project, a report will be submitted detailing their expenses. So that's the policy. So that said, the first request that you have before you is from Georgian Chocolate. And their total submission was for a request of $932 to purchase flower pots for the front of our storefront. This includes 2 per season from a local florist, also located in the township of Severn.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I didn't gather that we would give capital grants to private businesses. I thought it was groups, or am I wrong?
Madam Clerk.
So this is open to, the definition of groups is 2 or more individuals working together, or an organization servicing the township who has a mandate to provide direct benefits programs and services primarily to township residents. So, and it can be applied for by groups, nonprofits, or charity organizations.
So that one doesn't qualify under any of the 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Minis.
Thank you. I would like to see that applications for grant money, regardless of which pot of grants we're talking about, I've seen a lot come through that I would deem based on the rules, I guess, or what we're looking for, 3 quotes, proper criteria, that when they're vetted by staff, that if they're incomplete, that we could actually empower staff to deem the application incomplete, and send it back so it doesn't come to council, because I would really like to see grants coming through that that have all the pieces and all the pre-work done for us, because to me it's a big agenda item, and you know, I don't want to see any that are incomplete, and I'd like to give that power to staff.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
I agree with Councillor Minnings on that one. We sitting here and then we're sort of deciding, and then we ramble it around and it goes around in circles when we know and the staff knows that they have not filled it out or they don't even qualify. So in my opinion, staff should look after that and tell them what they need to do, bring it back to us when it's all done, and then it's our decision. And by then we would know. For this one and the next one, I think that should be what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion for the first one, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. So if I could just add to that a little bit. So if council is willing to do that, then I would add the words incomplete or ineligible. I think that would help. So the motion then would read that the capital improvement grant application from Georgian Chocolate Company be received and that it be denied if they do not qualify for the grant, and further that staff be delegated the authority to deem applications incomplete or ineligible.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Minnings. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next one, J2, I think, yep, Councillor Taylor's gone. Coldwater Mill Heritage Fund Capital Improvement Grant Application. Who would like to speak? So is everyone in favor of applying, other than that they would have to comply with the rules, which are to provide half the funding? I think it was 4,000, was it?
So, Your Worship, following up on the last conversation, so they're applying for $4,000. So would they be eligible for 2,000? Based on the other part of the conversation we just had prior to award, they've only provided one set of quotes. So prior to the funding be provided, they'd have to obtain 2 more sets of quotes.
Thank you. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, through the chair, the clerk. I was making those comments as well, as I am supportive of the initiative here. However, I didn't think there's enough quotes if we were applying the rule fair and in a similar manner than we did on the last grant application.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yes, I also would echo Councillor Jansen's comments. I think it's a great initiative. I'd like to see, you know, they'll have to meet the requirements, and I know it's sometimes tough to get 3 quotes for odds and ends, like some of the things on there, but I think the 50%, applying the 50% upon the quotes being provided, as long as they're in line with what we would anticipate. I think it's a great initiative, and it should be great for Severn.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. The motion reads that the capital improvement grant application from the Coldwater Mill Heritage Foundation be received and that 50% funding be awarded in the amount of $2,000, and that prior to funding being provided, that 2 more quotes be provided.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox, did you want to say something?
Yes, sorry, through the chair to Allison. These grants that are coming in now, can they come in like this all year round for this one particular capital, or do they have to go to budget?
So, through Your Worship, so in a normal year, they'd all come in for budget by the September 30th deadline. But given that some of these were as a result of what used to be known as the Council Special Projects Grant, that was going to be open at least for 2023 to be received on and off through the course of the year. Now that that's been dissolved and kind of put in. So we thought we'd entertain these up until probably the end of probably the end of this month, and at which point we're going to start pushing them all towards that next year's budget submission. And when we reply back on any grant applications from here between now and September 30th that we're looking for 2023 funding, it'll be, you really need to be looking at submitting in time with the regular cycle. So, and the idea is so that council can see all these applications at once.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion? Oh, you did have a motion, or you already read it? Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Minning, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. J3, verbal report from Councillor Brennan. Request for motion, just transition transfer. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you very much. I don't think I'd have to take too much time. I'm sorry, I've got 3 things coming up today with the correspondence being moved. I didn't think that was going to happen. Thought I had one until the agenda came out. But anyway, yeah. So I'm sure that you've all read the just transition proposal. There, it is. It's put forth by the Climate Emergency Unit, basically a national level thing. But just wanted a couple of things that I wanted to point out. What is nice about this particular motion is that we almost all the municipalities right now, and we're going to see this in a couple of weeks, we're having such difficulties with funding coming in, and you know, we're not getting development charges are becoming a challenge. We don't want to be hitting the taxpayer all the time, and yet, you know, we're doing things like, you know, spending $2 million on Burnside of taxpayers' money, where frankly the private sector should be paying for that, a good portion of it. So we have all these challenges as a council. We're not the only council that has it. And there's big money on the move, not just in Canada, but of course, I'm sure you're aware in the United States too, with regard to moving forward towards meeting some of the new climate change challenges. And this big money is about jobs. It's about it's about basically things like for us, for maybe charging stations. It's about green energy. It's about you know, heat pumps, changing the dynamic in our neighborhoods. It's about tourism. We're going to have job losses. It's not just Alberta out there that's going to have challenges. You look at I had the opportunity to join the mayor and the deputy mayor at the EV show on Friday. And like, it's stunning the progress they've made in the 5 years they've been holding that show. And it's amazing what's coming forward. 2 wheels, 4 wheels, snowmobiles, you name it. The change is coming fast. And I'll just give you one example, and maybe this will be close to the mayor's heart. For instance, the EVs that are the new vehicles that are coming out, they have actually 40% less parts in them than the current gas engine. You need specially licensed mechanics to actually sell them. Kia couldn't sell them. I tried to buy one of the Kias there a few years ago, and I couldn't because our local Aurelia Kia had no certified mechanics for EVs. They do now, and they were there with 2 of their vehicles and so forth. So what I'm suggesting is there's tons of changes. And moving on, that there's the whole idea of natural asset management. There's tons of money to be made. And if you've been following the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on the Municipal Asset Management Program, it's well advanced at this point in time. But it's going to, you know, we're going to need financial help to sort of accelerate our move and to engage, as we've already suggested we will in our communication strategy, that's the outreach strategy that's being developed under our strategy priorities. So this call that they have is quite interesting. What appeals to me about it is, in getting the money, what they're looking at is that you have sort of established jurisdictions that would have representation from local communities as well as regional, as well as the province. In other words, the money would be directed far more locally. There wouldn't be, like, for instance, what you don't want is a big chunk of money to go to someone like in Canada, to Danielle Smith, who just put a pause on green energy projects there because she's not sure what damage they're doing. Fascinating logic. In Ontario, I would argue a lot of our green energy initiatives are nothing more than greenwash. the money that we're spending just in power and energy alone against other options that have been recognized is astounding. So it would be nice for us to have a little control over a chunk of the money so that we can do things properly to meet these challenges of the future. That's what this particular thing asks us, is suggesting that we do. It's well thought out. There's a number of communities across Canada that have adopted it, and I'm asking that this council consider supporting this resolution. And at the absolute worst, in my mind, it sends them. I mean, it's obviously a federal thing, but it sends a message that all governments need to cooperate, work together. They need to listen and to make positive change. And this suggestion, I think, does that. So that's just my comments. Again, I won't go through it phrase for phrase. I'm sure you've all read it, and I hope you found it interesting. I sat in on actually 2 workshops that were involved around this thing, and I think a lot of integrity went into building this thing.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Sorry, excuse me, 2 things through the chair. One to Councillor Brennan. This JTT, would this just be like a volunteer organization?
I don't think that the actual nature of it has been fully determined. I think the feds would have a say in how that works. But the intent is basically that a local community like ours would be involved to get funding for our local community or at a regional level, right? And that we would have a say in who's going to sit on there and what kind of projects are going to be prioritized. So the whole idea is to be transparent and more democratic in the process. And I know you could argue, you could say, well, we already have councils, we have regional councils, we have provinces to make those decisions. The problem is, it's pretty clear that some of the really good decisions that we need to make in the very near future, and I mean very near, we're talking 5 years to get some of this stuff in order. And I'm not trying, this is not being a doomsayer. I think there are really good solutions out there. We just need to get at it, and we need some money, and we're not getting it from anywhere else. So the whole idea is to have a much more transparent, locally controlled agenda around some of these billions of dollars that's coming in. And we know they are. The government has committed to this, so that we can do things that we determine are important and that are going to affect our goals in a serious way.
That's fine, because I'm looking at it almost like the Couchiching health team. It's just people all come in. It's all volunteers. We all go there, and we've made big strides in providing good service, and if that's fine with me. And the other reason I like it is because we're going to get downloaded upon with all this stuff. It's already starting. Like, yes. They're going to say, well, municipalities, you need to have, as you say, charging stations. You need to do this, you need to do that. And once again, we are the ones that are going to have to go to our residents closest to us and ask for it. So I do believe that this is good, as long as when we do it, we just don't get into a bureaucracy. I'm fine with it.
Exactly. And again, and you're right on, Deputy Cox, the significant work that's being done at the municipal levels across Canada, and there's amazing examples, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, even in the prairies. And it's all being driven by municipalities. More often than not, they're getting help with grants federally as usually, but we need something a little more consistent if we're going to do long-term impact work.
Thank you. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you through the mayor and to Councillor Brennan. Thank you for bringing this forward. I'm generally supportive of this initiative, especially when it comes to the displacement of workers that could take place and transitioning them to a greener economy. My questions would be around the annual transfer of approximately $25 billion. Is that a number that's kind of been floated around, or is that something that's substantial that's already in a budget line with the federal government? And then the part where it says the JTT would transfer federal funds to newly established just transition agencies. So are these agencies already established, or is this something that's being proposed by this this motion that would be put forward for the federal government to consider?
Councillor Brown.
On the first question, I believe that that estimate, that 25 billion, is the latest estimate we have for what the feds, what the federal government is promising to distribute in the very in upcoming budgets. I can follow up with some details to see, or continue to follow up with regard to how that is emerging. There's no doubt that some of it's going to be gone directly to the province. I don't think we're going to change the world that way, but hopefully some chunk of that huge amount of money can get filtered down to our hands at the municipal level. So, in answer to your other question, no, the agencies are not set up. That's part of this proposal, that they would be set up, and they would be, as the deputy has suggested as well, these groups will be put together to operate efficiently, but also with our involvement, so that we're getting two-way communication and we can get our ideas and our proposals on the table. So that is not something that I've seen directly proposed by the Trudeau government at this time. It is a proposal that's coming from the Climate Emergency Unit to the federal government.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion? Thank you,
Thank you, and bear with me. This is a bit of a long one in this one that Councillor Brennan brought forward. So,
sorry.
Whereas Canada's greenhouse gases GHG emissions are slowly starting to trend downwards, but the reduction trajectory remains incongruent with what science and justice demands. Whereas Canada must spend what it takes to confront the climate emergency, and there is an urgent need for Canada to spend more on climate infrastructure that would drive down GHGs and hasten the transition off fossil fuels. And whereas Canada needs to make an audacious and hopeful offer to those workers and communities whose employment and economic security is currently tied to fossil fuel industry, and a lesser extent to the auto, steel, concrete, and agricultural industries, etc., all of which face substantial transition challenges, and to Indigenous communities on the front lines of fossil fuel extraction. And whereas the federal government has introduced a Sustainable Job Act, but this act needs to be paired with and backed up by sustainable investment in the jobs of the future. And whereas much of the climate infrastructure needed will come under provincial, municipal, and Indigenous jurisdiction, renewable energy, grid upgrades, public transit, zero emission housing, etc., and training comes under provincial jurisdiction, but it is the federal government that has the greatest capacity to pay. Whereas the new federal climate emergency just transition transfer, JTT, specifically linked to funding climate infrastructure projects that would create hundreds of thousands of jobs, along with training and apprenticeship programs for workers and those living in the oil and gas industry, would be a transformative program that signals that Canada is indeed entering emergency mode. Whereas the JTT would be an annual transfer of approximately 25 billion from the federal government to provincial, territorial, municipal, and Indigenous governments, purpose-built to meet the climate emergency imperative to decarbonize our society, ensuring communities can fund the infrastructure and training needed to transition off fossil fuels, but creating thousands of sustainable jobs in a way that is specific to their needs and locale. Whereas the JTT's distribution would be based on a formula linked to the recent GHG emissions in each province, but fixed from that point forward so as not to perversely incentivize continued high GHGs, recognizing that some jurisdictions face a more challenging task to transition their local economies. Whereas the JTT would transfer federal funds to newly established just transition agencies in each province and territory, jointly governed by the federal government, provincial, territorial governments, municipal governments, and local Indigenous nations, and in some case directly to Indigenous nations, ensuring that transfer money is not simply absorbed into provincial or municipal budgets or used to displace other infrastructure or training funds, but rather ensuring the money is used for its intended purpose and that the funds are allocated in a manner sensitive to local climate action plans, the unique GHG profiles of each region, and local labor market training needs. And whereas the JTT could provide significant, stable, multi-year funding for the climate infrastructure and training employment needs of a municipality, Indigenous communities, energy utilities, public transit authorities, and public housing authorities. Whereas the federal government is welcome to title such a new transfer as they see fit, example, sustainable job transfer, climate infrastructure transfer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Severn firmly endorse the call for a new just transition transfer, and that the Township of Severn urges the federal government to establish a new just transition transfer starting with a major financial commitment in the next federal budget, and will write to the federal ministers concerned expressing this support.
Is that okay, Councillor Brennan?
I don't
Okay,
know if you forgot anything, but that's pretty good.
all right. Mover, Councillor McIntyre.
Through the chair, might this be a good idea to send this out to all the other municipalities? Our motion that Mr. Brennan has put together with.
She'll have to read it again.
We don't have to read it again. I just suggest that it might be better to send it out to everyone else.
I know.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mover in a second.
I'll leave the answer to that to Madam Clerk. I love the idea, frankly. The more that we can get this stuff out, the better.
Yeah.
But
Madam Clerk will send it out. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
And to Adam Chambers.
It will take a 5-minute bio break, please. This is the longest council meeting we've had in ages.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
So speaking of that, and it's funny, Deputy Mayor Cox says took my opening statement about the Auditor General. So you got all that news now. The other two things is I just wanted to suggest to you, and I meant to mention it last time, I don't think I did it, is that we've just experienced the two hottest months in the history of mankind, the last 2 months. The two hottest months. So that's some food for thought. Anyway, no, the reason that I bring up the Simcoe County Greenbelt letter, it applies to the, directly, of course, to the Bradford bypass, which is definitely not in our jurisdiction, but it's what they're asking for at the bottom of the second page, just before the signature, that I thought was kind of impressive and hopefully would help send a message. So we know that a lot has happened in terms of impact analysis in the last few years, and there's 6 points there in terms of how decisions are being made. And this is where I keep getting concerned. You've heard me say, let's have evidence-based decisions and transparency. And I think this highlights that. To publicly release traffic studies, if you're going to make a proposal like the two major proposals for highways in Ontario, I mean, we need to know if it's just talk or whether or not there's some sort of analysis done. Points of origin, the value for money audit it makes sense. The traffic studies and the evaluation alternative is a key component of impact analysis. And sustainable transportation. Anyway, I don't need to go through the bullets. You've read it, and so forth. The point is, what happens down there on Lake Simcoe is going to impact Lake Couchiching big time. It's going to impact Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 5. And for this and any upcoming studies that the transportation people are going to be doing, I think we just want to highlight for them that, you know what, we want complete studies before you come plowing through our communities with proposals. And that's all they're asking for here. I don't think it's unreasonable. And it's just, again, it's just another, I was surprised to see this, quite frankly. I didn't know it was going to be on the agenda. It's just another way of trying to highlight that we just got to start making these huge decisions better. We had in Ontario 6 major highways slated for development prior to this government taking over. Not one of them is on the list for being developed now. The 2 that are going to cost billions of dollars that could go into healthcare and other things. And a lot of people think they're a complete waste of time, except for people who are benefiting from the land development. So I was hoping we could just endorse this just to say that, Ontario Transportation Ministry, we know you can do better. You've done so in the past, and we would like you to get back to doing a better job of your analysis before you propose billions of dollars in expenses. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. So based on the motion that's in the correspondence, the motion will read that the Township of Severn has concerns about the streamlined environmental assessment process being used by the Ministry of Transportation Ontario for the Bradford bypass and future highway builds. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Severn's Ministry of Transportation Ontario publicly release the traffic studies indicating the points of origin and time saving to justify this project, do a value for money audit of this project, comparing it to regional public transit alternatives, the traffic studies and the evaluation of alternatives justify it, pay for regional road improvements, plan for sustainable transportation, prioritizing getting Lake Simcoe watershed area GO stations built and a full orbit, Barrie waterfront, and all-day two-way electrification of the GO line. Complete studies that are not being done to determine the impacts to Lake Simcoe, cumulative climate impacts, cumulative health assessments, and cumulative water impacts, and use a salt alternative on the Bradford bypass.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor McIntyre. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I think the next one is 2.2, and I think it's Councillor Taylor, is it not?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the mayor and I sit on a floating cottages committee, and I'm hoping that council will support a motion that we like what we're seeing from the provincial government, the MNRF, where they've defined what a floating accommodation is. It's common sense. They're saying that its primary use should be it's navigable by itself. So I'm hoping that we could send a motion saying that we support the MNRF's amendments and send it to the Ministry of Transport of Canada and our MP, Adam Chambers, that the federal government should get their act together to have the same definition of what a floating accommodation is. And it's ridiculous that they're not on the same page. So I think the MNRF are on the right track. It's just now that we're dealing with waters on Trent Severn, which is a federal waterway, they don't apply to the provincial rules. So I'm hoping that we can forward our support of the MNRF to the feds, saying that hopefully that they can get their act together. So I'm anxious to see what the other committee says and whether the mayor feels the same way I do.
Thank you for those comments. Any other members of council wish to speak? I'm on board with Councillor Taylor. It's turned into a very contentious issue. Not sure why the feds aren't seeing it as the province does, but happy to send that letter.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion, Madam Clerk?
I do. So the motion reads that the Council of the Township of Severn supports the proposed amendments by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and that correspondence be sent to the Minister of Transport Canada and MP Adam Chambers requesting that the federal government match the definition of floating accommodations and cottages.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Do you think we could send this to some of the other municipalities?
Just the ones also sort of in the area similarly affected?
Like Tiny, Tay, Wasaga Beach, Collingwood.
Georgian Bay.
Georgian Bay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you. And maybe to the Georgian Bay's MP. I'm not sure who it is. I'm sorry.
Graydon Smith.
No.
No.
He's provincial. I don't know the federal one.
Federal MP.
Oh, MP, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Minnings. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I'm not sure who the next one is, Madam Clerk. I didn't write
it's the request from the Fair Board.
Fair Board. Okay,
so 2.4. G 2.4.
Who's going to speak to that? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think I see the chief in the background there, and I don't want to jump in and say we waive the fees, but if he's okay, which I think we've done it many, many years before, and it's a good thing that happens there, and I would support waiving the fees there. But I'll let the Ward 2 councillor speak as well there.
Councillor Jansen.
I was just through the chair. I'd like to know what the cost is. I am supportive, but I think it is a good idea that we know and understand what the costs associated behind this are.
Thank you. Do we know the cost, Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, I don't have that at the tips of my fingers, and the chief has had to step out. So,
Councillor Taylor, do you know the cost?
Well, no, I think it's absorbed in with the volunteer hours, and that comes out of the point system there. So I don't know the cost, but we've done it every year, so I don't see why it would be any different this year.
We can get the cost back to you at a later date, Councillor Jansen, if that's okay.
Yep, that's okay. And hearing what Councillor Taylor's comments, as I said, I am supportive. I think this is a great initiative. It does help out the Coldwater District Agricultural Society with the fall fair. I just thought it would be a good idea to understand the costs behind it.
Okay, we'll get that information to you. Thank you. Any further comments? You have a motion, Madam Clerk?
Certainly. So the motion reads that the correspondence from the Coldwater Fall Fair regarding a request for use of water truck and waiver of fee be received, and that council approves the use of the water truck for the Coldwater Fall Fair and waives the applicable fees.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Was 2.6, 2.6 the next one, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
I didn't know who wants to speak to it. Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just consistent with our delegations coming up at AMO. The little community of Selwyn has done a pretty good job of asking the province to provide a provincial framework for short-term rentals, as is done in other jurisdictions, and as we've, I think, talked about not too long ago. So it's just basically, I'd like to see our support of the Selwyn initiative. It's just basically to be consistent in the message we're taking to AMO in another 10 or 12 days. And we know that from a tourism point of view, because we know the advocates for short-term rentals are very happy to have a regulated system in place, and they prefer to have one that is consistent from jurisdiction to jurisdiction for obvious reasons. So I think Selwyn's done a good job, and I would like to suggest that we support that initiative as part of our own ongoing dialogue.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I just before we heard that, I just heard last week about the province of Quebec putting in new rules to make their municipalities working together, and it makes sense that we should be working together with all our fellow municipalities that were consistent and fair through the whole thing. So yeah, we should support this initiative from Selwyn, and look forward to putting a motion through and also discussing this at AMO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair, I totally agree. And the other issue I have is the fact that the cost that these short-term rentals are having on municipalities, it's on the backs of the people who are paying taxes and being good residents to sort of police the few bad apples. And it really bothers me. I've been getting phone calls in the Shoreview tree line area of new short-term rentals coming in, and we need to find a way to do this that does not cost the rest of the township just because of them. And this has been my big thing all the way along. The town of Blue Mountain has spent millions, but and I'm going to find the article for you. It was in the paper. After all the years, and I think that they've been into this for like 12 or 15 years. That's been a long time. Blue Mountain was one of the first ones hit with these, and they said that they have finally come to not an agreement, but things have settled down. And what happened was the short-term rental people in that township or that area made their own association. So basically, their short-term rental association polices the bad ones too, because they don't want them either, because it just causes problems for them. So now that the town of Blue Mountain is working closely with this short-term rental association, they are actually getting someplace and things are actually calming down compared to what they were. But that's taken a long time and a lot of money and court cases and people taking them to court. And the other one we have to remember is it's all well and good to say you're going to license them, but what happens to the mom and pop ones? What happens to the people who rent their cottage to their neighbors or their friends or their family to help keep up so they can afford their taxes? And it also offers those people a chance to get away for a holiday that's not as expensive. So I think that this is very important, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to go down to AMO and discuss it. Thank you.
Didn't see who was next, Councillor Brennan, but I think there was someone else. Was there? Oh, Councillor McIntyre. Sorry, Councillor Brennan. We'll let Councillor McIntyre go first. Go ahead. You're on mute, Jim.
Thank you. Through the chair, much like Deputy Mayor Cox has said, Shoreview has, there's a group of individuals there who are marshaling a committee together. There could be as many as 65 people in that group, because that's how many residents are in the area. They may come forward with some kind of a petition. And I think that before we get to that stage, it's important that when we get to AMO, that when we have our short-term rental conversation with the government there, I'd probably the assistant to the minister, but in any case, we need to come back with solid findings of what our intentions are, much like Selwyn has done. And I would support that Selwyn matter all the way to the end. And I'd like to be able to report back to that group that we have, the mayor or whoever delegates, to speak to that ministry that we got something concrete that will give them some hope, because they're really being deluged in that area with. And there's 3, 4, 5 different short-term rentals in there, and they have no respect for any of the permanent residents. So I'd like to reiterate what the deputy mayor said. Along the way, we have to do or say something that gives some people at least some hope. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I want to echo what Jim, Councillor McIntyre said, and the deputy mayor. I directly, in terms of trying to figure out how this thing will ever work out, had contact with the CAO of Prince Edward County and with their supervisor of bylaw enforcement. They have 2 bylaw enforcements there for this purpose in a population of 30,000 people. But it's interesting because what the bylaw supervisor, the manager there, told me was that if you want to know how to try to do this right, go to Blue Mountain. They also have had court cases, as the deputy has suggested, and again highlights the challenges of trying to do this locally and the bits and bits. And of course, we all know Aurelia is working on something. So I don't know. It just makes sense to have this thing for the sake of everyone to go provincial.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Certainly. So the motion reads that the Council for the Township of Severn supports the resolution of the Township of Selwyn regarding the matter of short-term rental regulations, and that a copy of the motion be provided to the Premier, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the Honourable Jill Dunlop, MPP.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to G2.7, correspondence from Michelle Prophet Healy, noxious weeds on municipal road allowance. Who pulled this? Deputy Mayor Cox?
Yes. I was actually pleased to see this because I've heard, and I'm sure other people have, different issues of poison ivy on our trails and our property. I firsthand know, because I have family members and myself, if we get it badly, and it is a terrible thing to have in the middle of the summer. Plus you have to go on sometimes prednisone, which is steroid. So I looked up into things. Michelle's letter was very clear, well written, and plus the fact that she told us about 2 other townships. So I was reading around on the weekend, and we do have a weed control person with the county, but they just do agriculture and horticultural, and that is the Weed Control Act of Ontario. Those are the 2 things they do. And I do know that the county of Simcoe has come to different farmers' areas in our township and sprayed for it. But I believe that we should be proactive in this. And I found an article which says, OMAFRA directs municipal councils, road authorities, operators of parks and conservation areas, and even the general public to control poison ivy wherever feasible. And the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority also says the same thing. It's so pervasive, maybe you can't, but at least you can do it. And the areas that I would prefer to see are if somebody reports, which is in the whole letter, that we could go out and send someone out and spray. But the other one is in our parks and our trail. I know we don't need to go all the way into the bush, but if we did two feet or so along each side and sprayed where there was poison ivy reported. We do hogweed. The other thing I would like to see are signs that say, this is poison ivy, or beware, there's poison ivy here. And I know that they have signs that they have little painted pictures on, but I think it would be a good idea is if we had a real picture of what a poison ivy leaf looks like, because it is different. I sometimes have trouble because there's a ton of 3-leaved little quickly flee things. And I think the 1-point leaf and poison. But anyway, bottom line is, I believe that we need to look at this. I think it's a safety issue, and I don't think it's going to break our bank. It'll just be people who call in and say, some's on your property, it's on township property. Can it be sprayed? And we send somebody out. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I agree with the deputy mayor, but I think my idea is have staff come back with a plan, a budget, and we should attack the areas that come forward to us for sure. So I haven't had poison ivy, but I know people have had it, and you don't want to get poison ivy. So what I'm looking for is maybe staff come back with a game plan how we can address an issue like this one here, and there's probably a few more around the township as well.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Jansen.
Through the mayor, I understand what Councillor Taylor's saying. I'm just wondering if if that approach may push us well past this summer season and fall season, when the residents in this area or in our parks are having issues with poison ivy or other similar type plants. Is there something we could do quicker using the acts that are available, like this? I'm trying to find it in the document here.
Area weed control.
Is there something we can use already that would help us roll this out quicker?
Madam Clerk.
The township currently does spray for hogweed. So we recently conducted an inspection and received reports of hogweed in a couple different locations, and particularly along the top trail, and have completed that spraying for this year. We discovered along the way that there are some stands of hogweed pretty substantial on private property and agricultural. So those we have pursued under the Weeds Act. At this point in time, we don't issue orders to deal with the other pieces. I don't think Public Works has a huge budget at this point in time to deal with this. We'd have to ask the treasurer to find out how much is left in that, and probably speak to the director of Public Works.
Madam CEO, did you want to speak?
I did. The director is away this week, but I know that he and the manager of roads have discussed this request and others, and they're planning to bring a report to August corporate services. So I think it would probably be best if council just directed it for a report, and we'll have that back to you quickly.
Any further comments? So, Madam CEO, no disrespect, I feel a report isn't going to help us at this time. We know that there's poison ivy out there, and I'm going to give council an example. I know, and I didn't want to say anything, but last year in the Ian Creighton Park, and I did bring it to staff and got nowhere with it, kids were infected with poison ivy. The park is infested with poison ivy, and it's well aware, but as the deputy mayor has stated, along the walking path, there were no signs that were posted. If we just sprayed in those areas, and this council can make a decision, I don't want to go behind staff's back, but in this circumstance, I think it warrants and merits that we've had a $2.3 million surplus. We can put a cap today. We can put a cap at $10,000, and at budget time, the director can bring a report, a wholesome report, for next year when we spray for poison ivy. But I feel at this point, we need to address Ms. Prophet Healy's request as well. I would see fit spraying the Ian Creighton Park where these kids were infected. It broke my heart to hear that they had poison ivy, and we did nothing. I'm hoping that council will support that. Council Millions, did you want to speak?
Thank you. I agree on both issues that we need a report at the next meeting, and I appreciate that that's going to come forward, and that we act immediately on the roadways and the park that now I've become aware of. So when I read this in the agenda, it's something that I don't think will, at least for Ms. Prophet Healy, to address the roadway concerns that are our responsibility to do that right away. I don't think that that's going to break any banks, and potentially now the park. And going forward in the report, it would be great to have a policy and a bit of a budget addressed to it to get on top of this issue, and that signage also go forward. It's our lands, and it's our responsibility to make sure people not only use them, but that they're safe when they do use them. And I think it's a win-win, and we can do both.
Thank you. Any further comments? Based on what was said, Madam Clerk, is there a motion that you could craft that we today respond to the Ian Creighton Park as well as the letter from Ms. Prophet Healy, and we put a cap on the amount of money, and then at budget time we can have a wholesome report come back at corporate services, but for budget next year, this council look at a slated amount of money that we could use to spray for poison ivy.
Okay, do you have an idea of what, so are we looking, so 2 points question here. So for the immediate short term, so you're looking to have the poison ivy addressed at on Agnew Road at Ms. Prophet Healy's address, as well as is it Ian Creighton Park?
Correct. So I'm not asking to spray the whole park. I'm just asking to spray, as the Deputy Mayor stated, a couple feet on either side of the walkways through the park so that children no longer will fall. I guess they were riding their bikes and they fell into the poison ivy. No signs were posted. Nothing was posted that there was poison ivy in the park. Councillor Brennan?
Just consistent with that 10,000, we do need to post. Well, you're going to need to post anyway when I'm assuming it'll be a contractor that does the work. It needs to be posted, but we should have signs in all these places like they do in Aurelia. It's to me, it's people need to know. A lot of people don't understand what poison ivy is.
And it's our park, Madam Clerk.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what I've done to my own screen there. So bear in mind, I just had a technology issue and lost my motion. So give me one moment here. Hopefully it's saved. Of course not. Report.
Deputy Mayor Coxwell, the Madam Clerk is.
And could you please put it up on the screen? Because sometimes I would just like to see it, because make sure it's all there. No offense. The ones that are already in our agendas are fine, but when we draft a new one, sometimes I like to make sure that we've covered it all. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, my computer went funky there for a second. On the signage piece to council's questions, it's quite normal, and I actually think it's a requirement that whenever this stuff is sprayed, that signage is erected. It's normally done by the sprayer, and council would have seen that recently with the hogweed spraying that occurred around the trail and in a couple other locations, that there were signs up at that time. So I believe that is actually just a requirement in legislation under the Pesticides Act. So okay, I will attempt to.
Deputy Mayor Cox, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I believe that that's fine, but we should also have signage after we spray, because we know it's probably going to be there, and we need to, as long as they can see that sign, then they're going to say, no, don't go over there. There could be poison ivy in there. So wherever we get it reported, we should, and on our trails, if our trail people who manage it from the recreation department, they see it, then they should put signs, even if it says, beware of poison ivy, and here's what it looks like on the trail, both sides, and away they go. And then that way we warn people, and it's up to them to follow the warning.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what the Deputy Mayor said. You need signs that notify people of the presence there, so they stay on track and don't drift off to the side picking flowers and things like that, because that's for sure going to get them.
Thank you.
Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it. So can we put a cap on it for now until we get a wholesome report, or at budget time? Can we put a cap? Is 10,000 okay with council as far as spending? Councillor Brennan.
Oh, works for me.
Are you, and Mayor Burkett, are you talking about for the immediate piece?
Yes, for the immediate piece today, until we get a report from staff, and it will have to go to budget so that we can have a more wholesome decision as to how much money we need to allot for the township. Deputy Mayor Cox.
And should we say, it says staff proceed immediately to have the area around the walkway, blah, blah, blah. Should we say, or any other called in reports or something on township property? Just because what if somebody calls in within the next 2 weeks? Or do we wait till 23rd?
Well, we'll wait till
okay.
They
all
phone.
Right, that's fine.
There is a limit. If they do phone in and we still have monies for this year.
Yeah. Okay.
We can pay for it.
All right, that's fine.
We'll have a wholesome report come back from staff.
Corporate. Okay, that sounds good. All right.
So in the interim, if the Ian Creighton Park work, I'm just looking for clarification here. So if the Ian Creighton Park work and the road allowance on Agnew Road comes in under $10,000 and staff receive another complaint for the balance of the season, provided it's under the 10,000, are staff to proceed with addressing that complaint?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to put that in there.
Councillor Minnings.
Was the request for Agnew Road also in the area of 3583, or was it only on that one property?
That is the property that's subject to the correspondence.
So Councillor Minnings, if you looked at the letter as well as the photographs that were sent in, most of Agnew Road has got their road allowances that's on township property. Michelle provided pictures. So the majority of the people have cut their lawns out to the road allowance, so it's quite pretty along that section. And of course, her area, because of the poison ivy, is unable to be managed.
Worship, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm just confused about the $10,000. If this is a service that council wants to provide, why would you cap it? So if somebody calls with the same complaint, they're out of luck because we've gone past the $10,000? I'm just not following that piece.
Okay, we can take the limit out. That's fine. I don't know what it costs to spray for weeds or poison ivy. If you want to take it out, that's fine.
Can I speak there, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see a Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think it's just it's getting out of control. Like, it's going to come in August. We're going to do these 2 areas. Let's hold to what we said there and wait for the report to come at the corporate services in August.
So are you saying let's spray for these 2 areas and then let the report come in August?
Yeah, because we don't know what's the magnitude of the money here. Let's okay. Calm, cool, and be rational here, and follow what the Director of Public Works comes up with there.
So we're going to spray for just these 2 until we get the report.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. Is council okay with that? Councillor McIntyre.
Through the chair, just where's the money coming to do the spraying? Where's it coming from?
Is Mr. Plunkett still with us?
I can take that, Your Worship. Andrew may have stepped away. We just talked about a $2 million surplus, so we could probably cover it in the interim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Or are we?
Is council okay with this, Councillor Brennan?
I just wanted to follow up on Councillor on Mark's comments there. Councillor Teddersburg going. There is a limit to what we can spend on things. We limit what we spend on roads in spite of potholes and other things. So common sense has to prevail. I would assume that the report that's coming forth in a couple of weeks will prioritize these things, because I guarantee you're not going to be able to spray every toxic plant in Severn Township. So I like the $10,000 limit personally. as an interim measure. But anyway, just wanted to pass that on.
Okay, any further comments? I can't see everyone. Is everyone okay with this?
I kind of like the 10,000 on it too until we figure out what's going on. Because who knows what's going to happen after the corporate service meeting.
So you've lost me. So
put the 10,000 limit back in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just we're just doing a temporary thing here. Let's just not spend crazy until we know the game.
Because even if we do have that report, there still will have to be a policy put into place and there'll have to be all that done. So that will take us right into who knows when. So right now we're just going to put that in. We have a surplus. I'm pretty sure we can afford $10,000 to help our residents not get poison ivy.
Councillor Taylor, are you okay with the 10,000 for this interim?
Keep it for the 10,000, but you're only doing the two areas that we questioned.
Correct. Correct. Is council okay with that? Okay, so Madam Clerk, we'll put the 10,000 back in. Thank you.
So the motion reads then that the correspondence be referred to staff for report and plan to address poison ivy on the township's road allowances, parks and trail, and that staff proceed immediately to have the area around the walkway through Ian Creighton Park and the road allowance at 3583 Agnew Road sprayed for poison ivy and signed to an upset budget limit of $10,000.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cox.
I have a problem with just saying that, because what happens if they spray in front of 380 whatever Agnew and two houses down they've got poison ivy, and then we say, nope, sorry, you didn't send a letter.
So we can change this to just be the road allowance on Agnew Road.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Thank you. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Minning, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. G 2.8, Washago Events Committee, request for funding. So I pulled this, so I'll speak to it. I think you have to excuse yourself, Councillor McIntyre, do you?
Yeah, do you want me to leave?
I think you have to.
Okay, I'll be in the front hall. Thanks.
Or you can just turn your video off, Councillor McIntyre, too.
I'll just step out. It's just as easy.
You can mute yourself as well, Jim.
There you go.
So the events committee, I don't know if anyone had a chance to come to the Canada Day celebrations. I know Councillor Minnings was there, Councillor Jansen was there. You witnessed, and Deputy Mayor Cox was there, but you saw the amount of people that were at the event. And of course, that took weeks of work. And as stated in the report, insurance that they had to provide, usually the Lions Club provided the insurance. It was covered under their blanket. But unfortunately, they couldn't cover it. And they're looking for, I think, $1,000. And I think we still have monies available. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? If council sees to move forward with this?
Yes. So staff's recommendation on this, if I could, is that if I could, yes, we do have grant funding remaining, especially since council moved the $30,000 into general grants for this year. The thought is that council could provide a one-time startup grant of $1,000 as requested, and that in the future the committee be directed to apply under the regular annual grant submission budget process.
Thank you. Is council okay with that? Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. If we have a motion.
Certainly, the motion reads that the correspondence from the Washago Events Committee regarding a request for funding be received, and that council provide a one-time startup grant of $1,000, and further that the committee be directed to apply under the annual grant applications in the future.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just a quick question on who does the grant money go to?
Goes to the events committee. I'm not sure which person's in charge of it.
Does a check get written to somebody, or I'm just curious?
Must go to the events committee. I think the
we will figure that one out, I believe. So with the members who have declared. I don't know if this group has a formal bank account yet, but we will figure that out with the members before we cut a check.
Can you let Councillor Taylor know, or let all of us know where it goes?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know whether it should go to a private individual is what my concern is.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Jensen, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on. I will wait for the members to rejoin us. Deputy Mayor Cox.
There is a bank account being set up in Coldwater for that events committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I can give that information to the clerk.
Thank you. Let me grab, oh, here he comes. Okay, what's the next one that we pulled, Madam Clerk? I can't remember now.
We're through the correspondence item, so we're now to the financial review.
So that was Deputy Mayor Cox that pulled that.
Yes.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about where we're at and why we're where we are. And I do know that the one thing I did want to speak to was the recreation surplus, 330,000 to Mr. Plunkett. Is he here?
I'm here.
There you are. Thank you. It says here, due to staffing resources, disability leave, staff retirement, and not filling the budgeted positions. Okay, so that's all got to do with positions, that 330,000? Or are those sports courts in there?
Oh, no, okay, so the sports courts are not in there.
Okay.
Sorry if I just can through the mayor. It is almost all position driven, and even the operational side is because we don't have those positions in place. So it is all related to positions.
So that money will stay then in the recreation budget?
That would be the plan, that it would still be in the budget for next year. So I wouldn't.
For this year, like to finish off this year, because we have a new director, right?
Oh, correct. We may end up spending more of it.
Yeah, and we will have positions we need to fill, because I'm going to maybe be speaking out of turn, but we are getting a new director of recreation, and we had a part-time program coordinator, and I'm going to say that the executive administration assistant to public works, that's a double duty. So we may be looking at a position, because we couldn't fill a part-time position, we may be able to make it into a full-time position that could do two things. I'm just saying that money will stay in the recreation so we can utilize that for the rest of the year.
Correct. It's just that right now, even if those positions were filled today,
yep,
we'd probably still end up with a surplus in that ballpark.
And that's fine, but could that surplus also just be
we could utilize it. I can't see us.
Can we utilize it for a capital expenditure if we needed it?
If you authorize a capital expenditure, we can certainly reallocate existing budgeted funds. Yes.
Okay, so the sports courts are a grant, but there is an additional amount we are going to add on to two of them. So would that money come out of this?
If I can, did we not already do a report on that?
Yes, we did. We said that we were going to spend for the two, we were going to enlarge Washago and Coldwater so we could have more pickleball courts, and it was going to be $60,000. So I'm assuming that would come out of there.
I think it was probably said we'd take it out of the capital reserve, but
okay,
in effect, that's exactly the same thing, because we transfer the remaining surplus into there anyways.
Okay. Okay, I'll let other people speak to it, and then if there's anything we can come back.
CEO.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just wanted to temper expectations for the poor new director. You'll remember we had a couple of reports. One was on the rec coordinator that we couldn't fill, and then the second one was moving to a director. And one of the tasks for him is to look at the organizational structure and figure it out. Yeah. I doubt we'll get new positions in before the end of the year, though. So council may consider next year, when you're looking at where the distribution of the surplus goes, you may, if there's recreation specific, we may want to create a recreation reserve, or maybe we have one or whatever. Like, there are ways to save that money. I think that's what I'm hearing from the deputy mayor, is
that's
she
right.
wants to save recreation money to recreation. So I just don't want you to expect the new director to figure out what he needs done on the first month.
You're right.
We're going to give him a bit of time.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with it. Recreation is going to need this money. And so I would just like it to stay with recreation, because I foresee it, becoming it is going to be, we already know that with our master transportation plan. So thank you.
Councillor Minnings.
Yes, and thank you for clarifying that to the CAO. I agreed, because I was confused by the initial response about 330,000 in surplus at this moment is all or almost all position driven. We're not going to make that up. It's impossible to make up that kind of salary money. So as long as it stays within recreation and is moved to another budget line, that's thank you to the CEO for that clarification, and to Deputy Mayor for bringing that up.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Oh,
Deputy Mayor Cox.
If no one's going to bring it up, where are we with our public works projects then? Are they included in here? Like, are they part of where we're at? Like, I see that when we look at public works also in that, our roads, so we're still, our actuals, so we got 9 million still to go? Or is that projects, or is that just operating too?
So if I can, when you see the amount that's still remaining, that's most of our roads projects aren't paid for until, they don't even invoice us until after the projects are completed. So you can ignore that piece. The issue right now is whether, because it will be paid, but it's whether we're on track for what we were going to spend out of the levy for roads. Yeah. And at this point in time, the director of Public Works has let me know that at least what we're spending out of the levy is on track. I think there's one of the capital projects that it would be paid for out of the capital reserve has been stalled for this year, but the ones coming from the levy are on target for this year.
And which one would that be that's stalled coming out of capital?
And off the top of my head, I think it's I want to say it's the one where we're just doing the engineering this year instead.
Culvert, or is it Sparrow Lake?
Off the top of my head,
I can tell you, Sparrow Lake is moving forward, but I bet you that culvert on Wayman that was budgeted 2.5 million is stalled because of.
But that's not out of the levy.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Certainly, the motion reads that the Corporate Services Report number C23-003 dated August 9th, 2023, regarding the financial review as of July 31st, 2023, be received as information.
Move in a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that bylaw number 2023-56 being is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Jansen, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That is carried. Madam Clerk, adjournment. This is the longest council meeting I think we've done in years.
I know. So motion reads that the meeting adjourned at 11:06.
Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Jansen. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your day. Councillor Brennan, do we not have a meeting here at 11?